At first I thought this video idea was crazy, but then what happened next changed everything. Clickbait. Those of you still on Facebook for some reason have probably seen it in your newsfeed, or on Twitter, or in this YouTube video. Headlines like, "You won't guess how one ingredient from your donuts could be leaving thousands homeless," or "The thing this 4-year-old is doing is cute. The reason he's doing it is heartbreaking," are everywhere, and frankly, amazing. I need to click on both those articles right now. Merriam-Webster even recently added clickbait to the dictionary, defined as something designed to make readers want to click a hyperlink, especially when that link leads to content of dubious value or interest. Clearly, many regard clickbait as the bottom of the barrel, whether it's YouTube videos with cleavage as thumbnails, or reasons you're secretly grumpy cat, or things only 90s kids will get. It's never really great. Upworthy and Buzzfeed are masters of clickbait today, but despite what you might believe, they didn't invent it. Clickbait, in fact, goes as far back as the 19th century. Like we talked about a few weeks ago about the rise of literacy causing an increase in hate mail circulation, as the lower and middle classes became literate, newspapers suddenly had a much larger market. And with that market increase came massive competition. During the mid-1890s, Joseph Pulitzer of the New York World and William Hearst of the New York Journal started a circulation war with each other. It started with Pulitzer's purchase of the New York World in 1883. He cut the paper's cost, tripled its content, and filled the pages with games, puzzles, pictures, crime stories, and led with catchy headlines like, "Was he a suicide?" and "Screaming for mercy." They didn't have voices, but that's how headlines sound. While the paper did do a lot of serious journalism, it was nonetheless slammed by other newspapers for doing any clickbaity stuff at all, which was probably just a result of the New York World becoming the highest circulating newspaper in New York City within 2 years of its acquisition. Pulitzer's success inspired William Hearst to pivot the San Francisco Examiner into the same direction, leading with headlines like "Hungry Frantic Flames," again with the voice. In '95, Hearst came to New York, acquired the New York Journal, charged half the price of the New York World, and was quickly in a circulation war with Pulitzer. Both papers drew a lot of their success from their comics, and Hogan's Alley, a comic featuring a bald child wearing a yellow nightshirt, was heavily fought over. The character is actually quite similar to today's memes and lolcats, using silly child speak and wacky expressions to garner easy laughs, but more on lolcats in a minute. This is where the term yellow journalism originated, of course referring to the character's yellow shirt, and would then be used to describe any sensationalist journalism. Yellow journalism wasn't exactly all fun and games though. In the 1890s, it led from circulation war to actual war. In 1895, a rebellion broke out in Cuba, and Hearst took this opportunity to fill his front pages with stories of sympathetic Cubans and Spanish brutalities. Pulitzer too jumped on the bandwagon, and soon the two were publishing story after story of questionable accuracy. These stories were somewhat responsible, in New York at least, for swaying public opinion that the only way to end the supposed Spanish atrocities on Cubans was with an American invasion. When a Cuban woman was reportedly detained and then sexually harassed by Spanish officials on a ship bound for New York, Hearst and Pulitzer ran with headlines like, "Does our flag shield women?" and "Refined young woman stripped and searched by brutal Spaniards while under our flag on the Olivet." That last one's a bit long. When in fact the woman was supposedly not sexually harassed and searched by female officials. When a US ship sank in a Cuban harbor in 1895, instead of being reported as it likely was, an accident, the New York World led with "Main explosion caused by bomb or torpedo," and the Journal led with "Destruction of warship Maine was the work of an enemy." Since the Journal and the World were only really read by New Yorkers, and yellow journalism fortunately didn't catch on nationwide, yellow journalism didn't cause the American invasion of Cuba, but rather contributed to it. And yes, the Pulitzer who grandfathered clickbait is the same Pulitzer who started the Pulitzer Prize for excellence in journalism and literary works. Right. Randall Munroe, the creator of the awesome webcomic XKCD, published a comic a couple of years ago with headlines from the 20th century rewritten to get more clicks. The one he chose for Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination was "This year's assassinations ranked from most to least tragic," which sounds pretty out there, but in the year 1900, two columnists separately led with pieces calling for the assassination of President William McKinley, who was then assassinated a year later. Come on! In 1888, a political cartoon titled "The Evil Spirits of the Modern Day Press" was published and featured all of the sensationalist styles of reporting seen at the time in yellow journalism. Things like scandal, paid puffery, criminal news, bad pictures, and personal journalism were being criticized over 100 years ago and are things that Gawker, Upworthy, and Buzzfeed all practice today. Also, this is less related, but lolcats are way older than you are. In my video about why cats rule the internet, which you should go watch, I talked about Thomas Edison's original cat videos, but they weren't the first lolcats. In the 1870s, British photographer Harry Pointer created a series of photos posing cats in different situations with funny sayings. Lolcats, 100 years before the term was reportedly coined on 4chan. Another thing that isn't really new, you know those little social media buttons on websites that show you how popular an article was on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+? Well, in the good old days before Google+, newspapers like the New York World would publish updated subscriber numbers on the newspaper next to how many more subscribers they have than other newspapers. Guys, I have 33,000 subscribers, which is 4.5 million less than the game theorists. Shit. What do you guys want me to talk about in next week's video? And sorry I don't do videos more often, just life keeps getting in the way. And if you haven't already, be sure to click on this hair that's so ever slowly growing back, or at least think about it, which is apparently what my hair is doing for if it wants to grow back or not. That was the worst outro ever.